Good news from Capitol Hill, bad news from Capitol Hill. Good news on inflation, maybe, kind of. This Biden disaster with Sean Spicer. We have so much to get to tonight on I'm Right. Okay, let's talk about Joe very, very briefly. Okay, Joe Biden does a press conference. It went exactly like you thought it was going to go. The important thing to know is NATO was in town. The other big boy, big shot leaders, allies of ours were in town. Everyone was there to watch it. It's one thing to embarrass yourself privately while you're singing in the shower. I do that often. It's another thing to do it in front of everybody. And, well, yeah, it is what it is. We learned this a few hours ago. The Biden campaign, they're already poll testing, Dome's viability against Trump. And maybe I'm only seeing what I want to see because I've been predicting this for 2 years, but it seems like this thing's about over. It seems like they're going to move on, but I could certainly be wrong. Who knows? Everyone has an opinion. Let's move on to some other stuff right now. Look, it is more than just palace intrigue. I want you to know that's not lost on me. I am enjoying it because I'm a political person. You're a political person. That's why you're watching this show. But there are big, big things at stake. As we speak right now, China has a record number of ships surrounding Taiwan. They sure look like they're either gearing up for something or they're just going to slowly squeeze that place like a python until this whole thing's over. The world reacts when the President of the United States of America is not a functional adult. It does matter. It matters a lot. When bad people sniff weakness, they take advantage of it. And here we are, all right? Now let's move on to some domestic things here. So Anna Paulina Luna deserves a whole lot of credit for what she's been doing. She's trying to keep Merrick Garland in check. You see, Merrick Garland, he does not get near enough hatred. Merrick Garland has taken his position as Attorney General. That's the top law enforcement officer in the United States of America. And he's turned it into a dirty, commie, secret state police office is what he's done. Look, do I have to go down the list on everything Merrick Garland has done? From covering up for Joe Biden, hiding the tapes he won't release, arresting pro-lifers, 1,000+ January 6th political prisoners, incident after incident, time after time, turning a blind eye when pro-life centers are firebombed while tracking down every J6er who put up a Facebook post. Merrick Garland is an evil person who has done as much as anyone in the history of this country in his short time to bring this country to its end. He has. He's one of these people who hit the fast forward button on our end because of the things he's done. And today they had a vote. What was this vote all about? Well, the vote was, we're going to fine him $10,000 a day. Merrick Garland is going to be fined because Merrick Garland is in contempt. And 4 Republicans voted against it. John Duarte, David Joyce, Mike Turner, and Tom McClintock. 4 Republicans voted against it. 12 Republicans didn't even bother to show up. It failed, of course, because of all this. So Mike Johnson couldn't whip together the votes for this thing. 4 Republicans flat out voted with the communists. 12, were they playing golf? Was it late breakfast? I would like to know the excuse for not showing up to vote. Now, let's just fast forward through this thing. Are a lot of these guys Democrats in disguise? Of course they are. Are a lot of these guys blackmailed? There's no doubt about that. Remember, we now have congressmen who are being more honest about the blackmail that goes on in Washington, D.C. Congressman Dork does a little congressional trip over to the Middle East somewhere, to France somewhere. He meets a lovely young lady at a bar. They end up hitting it off, and he doesn't know that he has just signed away his voting rights forever, because anytime he tries to vote against the system from this point forward, he gets a knock at his door informing him, hey, we took a video of all that. You really need to not show up for this Merrick Garland vote. Keep in mind, that's not just something that happens in the movies. We know now, I know this, I know people in DC, this is something that happens regularly. Why did we have Republicans not bother showing up? I don't know. But I'm tired of this party. I'm tired of the failure. I'm tired of them selling us out all the time. The Republicans are constantly holding us back from attacking the communists, and it's absolutely killing us. Now, let's get to this. The House did do something good, to their credit. They passed the SAVE Act. What is that? Well, it simply says illegals can't vote in our federal elections. Now, this is one of those things that shouldn't have to be passed, and it won't pass the Senate, and it definitely won't get signed into law by Joe Biden, so keep in mind. But this is one of those things, the fact that we have to do it probably reflects pretty poorly on where we are. Illegals not voting in federal elections is already the law, but you see so many of these states are run by communists now, and they do. In Illinois, they give driver's licenses to illegals, and they ask them on the form, hey, are you an American citizen? And if you check yes, they'll register you to vote right then and there. What proof do they ask for? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So illegals are already voting in elections. We know why. We know what's going on here. As the saying goes, if Democrats thought illegals were voting Republican, you'd be able to see the southern border wall from outer space. They didn't bring in 12, 20, pick your number, million people in the last few years just to pick the crops. They picked those people because it's going to help them stay in power. Now, look, this is going to go nowhere. Chuck Schumer is not going to do anything with this, even if he did, which he won't. But even if he did, Joe Biden would never sign it into law at all. But there were some informative sound bites on the House floor by dirty communists who oppose this. Now, before I play the sound bites, I just want to explain a couple things. Democrats cheat in elections. This is not new. No, every election isn't stolen, so get up off your butt and go vote, become an activist, get local, but Democrats cheat in elections. The two platforms of the Democrat Party are, well, you shouldn't have to show ID to vote, and we'll just mail ballots to everyone. Why do you think that is? They cheat. They intend to cheat. So let's set that part aside. Of course they want illegals voting. I want to talk more about language and how the communists manipulate you. You see, communists hate everything. They want to burn everything down. Their intention is to have a revolution. They're fighting a revolution. That's what they are doing. They're trying to burn down the country, everything. But that's a difficult sell, isn't it? How do you go to the people and say, I'm going to burn your country down? You can't exactly lead with that. So they do something. They try to use your values against you. Now, none of these commie hags you see in this video are going to sway you, but keep in mind, they're not talking to you. They're not trying to sway you. What they're trying to do is either sway Norm and Norma, using their values against them, or in the very least, get Norm and Norma to shut up. Hey, just don't oppose us. That's why when you're trying to defend illegals voting in elections, you use language like this.
This is the 2024 version of the Jim Crow poll tax, and we should vote against it.
Our fundamental access to our democracy is being politicized. And this xenophobic attack that we're debating today will make it harder for Americans to vote. My Republican colleagues will claim that requiring IDs is a small ask, but nearly 30 million people lack a valid driver's license.
This bill, they call it the SAVE Act. It should be called the Don't Let Americans Act. Don't Let Americans Vote Act.
Only citizens can vote for the United States Senate. Only citizens can vote for the presidency of the United States. So this extreme MAGA Republican voter suppression bill is not designed to solve any problem on behalf of the American people. It is designed to jam people up and prevent Americans from voting. The extreme MAGA Republican voter suppression
I know that language, that would never work on you. I know that. I know you're probably throwing things at your television right now. But remember, always remember this. Communists are not worried about messaging to you. You're an individual who wants to think, you seek out information, you're the last person in the world who they would ever be able to manipulate into voting for them or staying quiet. So they've disregarded you. When they give speeches like that, it's Jim Crow. That's for your nice neighbor. He's a good dude. He's watching a game tonight, goes to work, loves his wife and his kids. He doesn't want to be a racist. Hey, I'm not really comfortable, but I will be quiet. I don't want anyone to call me a racist. They use the fear of normal people against you. And look, they are tearing your country out of your hands. You see, the American citizen like you, whether he is born here or earned his citizenship, the American citizen is invested in this country. That's why they hate you, and that's why they're trying to replace you. They need you replaced, and they're being very successful at this. You see this, New York? $2.6 million in taxpayer money to illegals. $1 billion, putting them up in hotels around everything. You see net job losses for American citizens. In the meantime, illegals have added millions and millions and millions of jobs. And they're not just bringing in crime. They're not just destroying the education system, the healthcare system. They're not just bankrupting that Social Security check you were hoping comes every single month. They're filling the place up with trash. New York's having to have trash demonstrations now.
Good to see you. Welcome to our trash revolution. We're ready to do whatever it takes to cut these rodents and the mounds and mounds of plastic bags off our street. And so I'm excited to stand with the councilman and the commissioner and build on those efforts by tossing even more black bags in the dustbins of history and taking the next steps forward in our trash revolution.
Our trash revolution. Jeez. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right. Now let's talk about some culture war stuff. Let's go across the pond. It's not just us suffering from this disgusting leadership. They're going through this in England, all over Europe. We'll talk to an English woman in just a moment. Before we talk to her, I want to talk to you about your cell phone. No, I don't care about your physical phone. I'm talking about your mobile company. Who is it? Is it Verizon, AT&T? Is it T-Mobile? These companies, these big companies, are despicable. Go look them up. You don't have to take my word for it. Go look up your cell phone company and use DEI. Go look them up on the internet. You happy you fund that? My company is Pure Talk. I'm on the same 5G network you are. Great service. I pay half of what I used to pay, and my company loves me. Pure Talk CEO is a veteran. Their customer service, they're Americans who speak English. You can keep that phone. Keep your number. Go to puretalk.com/JesseTV and switch today. We'll be back. Well, I don't even know what to say about inflation. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to present this. You see, we got the news today. It was all kinds of headlines out there that we got a reduction of 0.1%. Granted, it's 3%, which is laughably low year over year. But since 2021, car insurance is up 52, gas 49, eggs 38, baby food 30. Look, I don't expect you to stand up and cheer, but maybe this is the start of some relief. Let's ask Tiana about it. Joining me now, my friend Tiana Lowe Doescher, columnist for the Washington Examiner. Tiana, okay, how did they even get this number when everything else seems more expensive?
So it's really consolidated to two categories. One being energy, and that's in part because nobody wanted to do holiday travel. No one went on road trips. And also because Joe Biden decided to dump an extra 1 million barrels of oil on the market prior to July 4th, anticipating these headlines. And then the second big category is used and new cars, because you had a bunch of people during the pandemic when they had that extra government stimmy check, they wanted to spend it, they wanted to buy new cars. And at the same time, you also had the supply chain issues. That's finally resolving, which is why you have like a 10% reduction in used car prices. Everything else is still increasing, albeit a little bit more slowly. However, there's one big if. Shelter comprises about a third of the overall CPI basket. And right now, the BLS is saying that home prices and rent have only increased about 22% since Joe Biden took office. But if you look at the median monthly rate on an average mortgage, it's increased like over 100% since Joe Biden took office. So that's like an annual rate of at least 33%. So there's a chance that the real number, as realized by ordinary Americans that have been trying to buy new homes or have rents that are adjusted based on that mortgage market, are experiencing much higher inflation than that shelter number attributes to it.
Okay, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, so let me see if I have this correct. This is all just a lie. This is all just them massaging numbers, dumping oil on the market. We're not getting any actual real inflation relief, no matter what the numbers say, correct?
I certainly wouldn't say that this is a meaningful sign that it is getting better. What it is it's stopping the process from the end of 2023 through the beginning of this year, where the inflation crisis was getting dramatically worse, right? So inflation came down from 2022 through halfway of last year. It went from like 9% to 3%. We are now back at 3%. Why? Because inflation went up through the end of last year. It went up through the beginning of this year. And now it's finally turning the corner. But the thing is, you can't get ahead of yourself because we have 2 decent months in a row. The Fed doesn't want to see 2 months. The Fed wants to see a meaningful trend. Let's say at least 4 or 5 months, maybe 6 months. Because the fact is, the Fed target is supposed to be 2% inflation rate, not 3. We're finally hitting 3. We need to see it across other industries, and it needs to be something that isn't just food or energy costs, because those are extremely volatile. The most dangerous thing about this report is that those service prices are the stickiest, and that's still running at about a 5.5% inflation rate for the year.
Oof. All right, Tiana, as you know, I'm quite stupid, so I need you to explain this to me. Why are we trying to get back to 2% inflation when we've had this horrible inflation just crushing everybody? Shouldn't we be going for deflation?
So that's what a raw monetarist would think, right? That's probably what you and I would want. But what the Fed wants is they want predictability. They want to have an anchored expectation, because the second people start thinking that the Fed is going to be, much more restrictive than they would be otherwise, or much more loose than they would be otherwise, it distorts markets, it distorts treasuries, futures, but also it's the fact that the government can't afford to spend if we don't have any inflation baked into the cake, right? If we ran the government the way I know that you and I would want to, we could probably do a 0% inflation target. 1% inflation, when you think about it, isn't that bad, but over time, it does erode the purchasing power of a dollar. If you compare it to 3%, how much more quickly that paycheck gets eroded, it's a matter of years that it's faster getting eroded. And so right now, the real issue, politically speaking, is that Joe Biden needs an interest rate cut before this election because he has no good news. If it's even him on the top of the ticket, this is a problem that will plague any Democrat they try and install there, because right now, the net interest payments on government debt are up 42% from last year.
Yeah. Okay, I want to change subjects just because I'm ready to throw up in the trash can here. All this news is so terrible. You wrote about Joe Biden/Dome's tax plan. What is their tax plan?
So there's what Joe Biden says the tax plan is, and there's his actual budget. His actual budget would decrease real GDP by like 2% each year, result in real wage losses. And that's on top of the 5% wage cut that the average earner has experienced since the start of his presidency. And then there's also what he says he'll do. Joe Biden, during that debate, if you actually could pay attention past the slack-jawed, terrifying, vacant glare, what he actually said was, we could just round up all the billionaires and tax them, and we can fund childcare, nursery schools, elder care. Jesse, all the billionaires in the US together own $5.5 trillion. Even if you took them Soviet style and threw them in the gulag, we're running annual $2 trillion deficits. It would cover the deficit for the next 2.5 years. And then what? That's not sustainable. We don't have a taxation problem. We have a spending problem. And that's why Joe Biden's tax plan is so scary. It doesn't actually create any new revenue streams. And there's a point where tax cuts, once you start increasing taxes, you start decreasing the overall revenue, right? With the Laffer curve. And it's why corporate tax revenue has never been higher. And that's because of the Trump tax cut, because it spurred onshoring international investment and domestic growth of the economy. Joe Biden wants to do the opposite. And it's all in the name of equality, Jesse. It's better to bring in less tax revenue if it means that everyone gets punished more.
Yeah. Oh, sounds a lot like, what's that word? Communism to me. All right, Tiana, we have to talk about Joe Biden. Is he staying? Is he going? Everyone knows where I stand. I've been telling people for 2 years I think they're going to kick his old butt out the back door. But everyone has an opinion, and all this palace intrigue is just fantastic to me. What say you?
So, practically speaking, the only people that have the actual power to remove Joe Biden are the delegates. So for as much as, Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama have all been leaking and really letting all of their, hagiographers here in DC telegraph that they really don't want him to be the nominee. They know he's getting clobbered in the polls. There's not anything they can do. And I think they're taking the wrong approach. Look, Joe Biden has a money issue. His entire family has a money issue. This is a man that's refinanced every single home he's owned every 17 months. His son still owes like $3 million in back alimony. That's beyond all the legal bills because he's facing another felony trial, right? Jim Biden, all the Biden brothers, Val Biden, Owens, Jill Biden, his kids, his grandkids, they all need cash. So outside of the delegates deciding there's a stipulation in the DNC code of conduct and in their rule book where they can vote their conscience. So if they all decide to vote for someone else, they can. But the other issue is that money legally can only go to Kamala Harris. And that's if Joe Biden allows it. If Joe Biden decided to withdraw and say, I'm giving all the money back to donors, Kamala Harris no longer has access to that war chest. And it's $250 billion. The idea, this Aaron Sorkin West Wing fantasy that they're going to have a, round robin speed dating style primary at the convention, it's just not born in reality. And even if it were, you would have the entire Congressional Black Caucus and half of the state delegates say, why are you trying to leapfrog the first Black, Asian, female vice president with, Pete Buttigieg or Gretchen Whitmer? And we've all seen the polling of Harris versus Trump. And frankly, over time, it looks even worse than the polling of Biden versus Trump.
Man, I am so enjoying this entire thing. Tiana, thank you so much. I appreciate you. It's wonderful drama. Look, for us political people, let's be honest. It's as good as it gets. Sean Spicer knows a lot about all this stuff, the ins, the outs, what can they do, what can't they do. He's going to join us in just a moment. Before he does, let's do this. Let's get you a great night's sleep every single night. And I'm going to be honest with you. Taking something that puts you to sleep, finding something that puts you to sleep is not difficult. You don't need dream powder from Beam to fall asleep. You don't. You can go buy something over the counter, put you to sleep. The difference between dream powder and everything else is when you wake up, you feel fantastic. Because dream powder, it's not drugs. It's just natural stuff, melatonin, things like that. When you wake up, you don't feel groggy. You don't feel half dead. You feel great. That's what takes dream powder to a whole different level. And it's a cup of hot chocolate is what it is. It sounds more exotic than it is. It's a delicious cup of hot chocolate. Mine's cinnamon chocolate. Pour it in a little milk, warm it up in the microwave, stir it up, and just sip. right before bed. Wake up feeling like $1,000,000. 40% off. Shopbeam.com/Jesse Kelly. We'll be back.
There are certain immutable facts of life, and those were painfully obvious on that debate stage. And the president just doesn't seem to he hasn't come to grips with it. He's not winning this race. He's more likely, if you just look at the data and talk to people around the country, political people around the country, it's more likely that he'll lose by a landslide than win narrowly.
Ooh. Ouch. Not exactly a vote of confidence. Joining me now, Sean Spicer of The Sean Spicer Show, who's not going to be in Milwaukee next week. I don't want to talk about it. I'm bitter anyway. Sean, okay, let's have a chat. Everyone says Joe Biden's gone. He's going to be...
Listen, the elites are going to Milwaukee. I get it. I'm not an elitist. This is like Joe Biden. I'm blaming the elites. I'm not an elite. You're an elite. I didn't get to invited. You're an elite.
That's me. I'm a very elite person. 100% me. All right, Sean. Look, the palace intrigue is bad right now. It is fascinating to watch what a poison pill Kamala Harris is in this entire thing. But Biden is hanging on for now. This can't last, right? It's not going to happen.
There are three things that were happening this week that I think were important. One, House and Senate Democrats were returning to Washington where microphones could get jammed in their face. And we're seeing a little of that today. Number two, the NATO summit, where world leaders and their top aides can leak to the media that he lost a step. He forgot somebody's name. He nodded off. That's high risk, low reward. And number three, what the White House is, I cannot believe, calling a big boy press conference as though it's funny. On Thursday, which is nuts. The idea that after 3 days of intense meetings, you're putting this guy who couldn't, after 12 days of rest, handle a debate. I think that's high risk, low reward. What do I mean? So what's the big thing? On Friday, if anything goes wrong, I think we're going to see a whole another level of panic set in. If Biden is the nominee Friday night, he's it. We're going. It's done. But if he can get through this week, I think there's not even a question in my mind that because he's dug in.
Okay, how much worse could it get for him, though, Sean? Because I don't disagree, obviously, but how much worse could it get? I mean, look, okay, he has to get through a press conference. So let's say his press conference goes bad, which, of course, it won't go well. It's just a degree of how bad it is. Let's say NATO goes bad, people leaking, but he's not going to be worse than he is now. You have Democrats openly calling for his head. Clearly, the guy wants to stay.
So there's two groups that matter right now, in sort of descending order. Number one is the leadership, the Hakeem Jeffries, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Chuck Schumer. He's still got them, at least not saying negative stuff. That's a huge win. The second is the Black Caucus. He had a call with them and the Hispanic Caucus and held them together. That is the base of the Democratic Party, the Democratic coalitions, right? So if you can keep Black men and women on board, you're in good shape. And that's where he's got right now. If he starts losing the head of the CBC coming out or something like that, then he's done. It's over. As long as he can keep that base together, he's okay.
Okay, so I understand why Jill and Hunter would want him to stay. But you've been in the White House. You've been in the halls of power before. I don't understand. I understand the intoxication of power and all those things, but why would Joe want to stay? I mean, look, he's on the back nine. Sean, he doesn't have 5 years left, probably. He definitely doesn't have 10. Everyone with eyes can see that. Why would you want to stay in the most stressful job in the world? Go to the beach. Go to Nantucket. I know he rents a place there all the time. Live out the rest of your days with chocolate ice cream on the beach. Why would Joe want to stay?
Well, first of all, the greatest job in the world is former president. You get a full Secret Service detail. Everybody wants to see you. You have to make no decisions. I think that, to me, like the greatest gig ever is being current vice president or former president. Vice president, you get a pool, big house, no real decisions. President, former president, you get the full detail, the motorcade, everything, without any of the drama or the responsibility. But to your question, and you alluded to it, and this is the thing that's important, is the people around you are addicted to power. Jill, Hunter, Ricchetti, Donilon, Bruce Reed, Anita Dunn. When they leave, when he leaves, they leave. When he leaves, they lose power, and it's over and it's done. So to answer your question, why does Joe stay? Because they want him to. They need him to. And if the people are around you are saying, you can't go, it's too important, there's more work to be done, you're the only one who can stop Donald Trump, you start believing your own spin. And frankly, he is in such a bubble that those are the only people that matter to him, and he's only being given access to people who want him to stay. So if the only thing that you're hearing, if your echo chamber is just people who said it's too important for you to leave, you've got to stay, the health of democracy, the future of the free world, all depends on you, well, then that's what you think. And you alluded to it, but I'll tell you, I said this in the first book I wrote. When I went to resign, I knew that the second that I handed that piece of paper to the President of the United States, that my life would be forever changed. It was over. I couldn't ever go back. You can't just walk back into the White House. And I was a mere staffer. And so I think these folks get it. Once they say he's going and he's gone, he's not the center of the universe. No one cares what they think. Hunter can't grift off him anymore. Jim Biden, his brother, the gig is up. So, and for real this time, because there's no potential run in the future. So they're all invested. You know, Jill just got on the cover of Vogue. That's over. No more beautiful spreads, no more press corps following you and reservations at all the restaurants that everybody wants to have you seen it. You're back to Delaware, and that's it. You're not flying around DC, hobnobbing with all the world leaders and all the thought leaders and get invited to the Aspen Ideas Conference or wherever else they love to hang out. That's, you know, all of the elite events that Jesse Kelly gets to go to. That's it. They're done. And so that's it. DC is a power-centric city, and once these guys give it up, they're empowered to empower him.
Yeah. Why is the media out for him now, Sean? They've covered for him. They have covered for him for years. They're
Great
out
question.
for him now, though, and they are out for him. Why?
You know what? You're the first person that's asking that, because I think you're the only honest broker out there that's like, all the rest of them are afraid to ask this question because they lied to him. And it's like a family. And I think Corinne felt that way yesterday. What are you guys doing? We're friends. I used to work at MSNBC. My partner was at CNN. Why are you treating me this way with these tough questions and accountability? It's because they misled them. And that's the thing. Hell has no fury. And Jake Tapper did this yesterday. The problem is, once you start attacking the moderators of the debate, once you start misleading the press, they're going to turn on you because their credibility has been called. They were like, we covered for you. We read your talking points. We said that this was normal, that everything was okay. And then you betrayed us and you lied to us. So that's why they turned on him.
Oh, it's going to be enjoyable. Sean, I won't see you in Milwaukee, but go tune into the Sean Spicer Show. As you can imagine, you get juicy stuff like that all the time. It's awesome. All right. We'll be back. All right. I have to admit it to you again as we get ready to lighten the mood here. I like Nancy Pelosi. I love her. She's horrible. I understand she's horrible. She's a Disney movie villain. She's Cruella de Vil come to life. I get all that. And she's been horribly damaging to this country. I get all that. But whenever I see Nancy Pelosi deal with media, I think to myself, where are the Republicans like this? Why don't we have a House and Senate full of Republicans who deal with the press like this? Republicans, pay attention to Grandma Vodka. This is how you deal with the press.
Convey to President Biden what you said this morning.
I'm not having any conversations with you or anybody else about what I talked to the president about. We don't do this, y'all.
Do you believe that?
I never do. I never do, so it's nothing new.
I understand, Madam Speaker. Do you believe that him waiting so long to make this decision could harm the
I'm not
party?
making any comments in the hallway about the fate of our nation. Okay?
Are you concerned whether or not he can win in November?
I think he can.
Do you believe he should run for re-election?
I'm not. Am I speaking English to you?
It's so good. I love her. Go get it, GOP. That's how it's done. I'll see you tomorrow.